This is the Mattel Jurassic World Legacy Collection, Extreme Chomping Tyrannosaurus Rex. Simply press the button at the bottom of T-Rex's head, and it will open and close her mouth. I suppose it would make some sense to figure out how long T-Rex is. So from the tip of her nose to the tip of her tail, she's 18 inches in length. How about from the bottom of the feet, or basically where she's firmly planted, to the top of, well, let's go with the head. The dinosaur is 7 inches high. She's not one of the largest of the T-Rexes for the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom toy line, but she's pretty big. There's still 2 larger versions of the T-Rex available. I don't know if I'm going to get the one that's around $80 that essentially is swallowing the dinosaurs and you can open up the stomach and stuff like that, but I'm going to get the one right after this one, so we'll do some size comparisons between the smaller Chomping T-Rex here, the Extreme Chomping one, and the one the next size up. In the meantime, though, we'll do some size comparisons. So this one is not as big as probably what one would expect for T-Rex to be, but there she is next to Velociraptor Blue. And by the way, this was the action feature one, which we've already had a look at. This is the one that springs up that came with Owen. While we're actually on the topic of Owen, we'll bring the 3 3/4 inch Owen into the review here so you can see how big Extreme Chomping T-Rex is to that. How about we bring in one of the action pack dinosaurs? And this was the... Now I'm drawing an absolute blank. I think it was the Dimorphodon. That's right, the Dimorphodon. Put that one right down there so you guys can see. And how about a Roarvor? We're pretty much covering all the lines now. This is the Roarvor's Triceratops. Hopefully that gives you enough scale comparisons. Again, T-Rex could be a little bit bigger, but we're going to be looking at the next size up as well. So that one will be quite a bit of a bigger girl. Before we look at the gimmick at Extreme Chomping T-Rex, let's have a look at the dinosaur itself. Some sad news though, actually, when I got her out of packaging, I did notice that there's a little bit of paint just right around her eye area here. I tried my best to see if I can just scrape it off, but it's unfortunate that it looks like it's just right around the eye area. The other side is completely fine, but I do have to mention that a little bit of paint mishap happened on my release here, the dinosaur that I picked up. As a whole, I really do like the look of this T-Rex. It's got some much needed additional coloring to some of the earlier T-Rexes that we've gotten over the Jurassic Park line. Of course, we'll talk about the mouth section in a bit. I don't have any of the older dinosaurs. I had one a while ago, and I can't remember what I've done with it. So, of course, a new Jurassic World movie, you always get your fingers crossed that they're going to come out with some new toys, and they've been very generous with this particular movie release. Again, like, you've got some really nice coloring here on the T-Rex. Sort of a caramel color shade for the primary color of the dinosaur, but then you've got some almost airbrushings here of striping that's running down the spine area. One can't overlook the fact, though, that the neck collar, if you will, does have a slight departure of color from everything else. This color here works generally well. There seems to be like a little bit of a lighter shade happening here, but it's pretty consistent from tail all the way to the head. Unfortunately, though, when you get to the top area there, this more reddish brown they've airbrushed in sort of changes abruptly right here. It gets a slightly more darker shade of brown, and then it resumes again with the lighter reddish brown happening. Again, it's very small, but you may notice it when you're like kind of looking at the dinosaur that this collar piece here doesn't seem to quite gel with all the rest of the colorings. In fact, being that it is its own separate piece of plastic, it does kind of look like it's just a completely, well, it is literally a second piece of plastic that they've just put as basically like a hiding point between the body, the torso of the T-Rex, and of course the head. It's kind of like this little hidden away sort of collar piece that kind of keeps everything concealed. The eyes are very nicely done here, except for the fact I've got that little paint problem there. Again, you've got some nice transitionings of color between the darker red and then the lighter caramel color that blends quite nicely. I don't know if it's intentional, but there's all these little spots, these little flecks of paint that are just here and there. They're not everywhere, but they're enough just to kind of give it some additional texturing, some additional skin tone to it. You can see a lot of it happening up top here. The body is exquisite. I've mentioned this over a couple of reviews now, but the dinosaur's skin is very reminiscent of almost like an elephant or rhino hide, where you've got the wrinkling all happening through it. Again, all these little flecks of paint sprinkled across there. It's magical. It really is. It's really very magical. A little bit of assembly when I got the Extreme Chomping T-Rex out of packaging. I had to attach the tail, which seems to be rather consistent with a lot of the dinosaurs, actually, from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom line. I guess except for Stegosaurus, primarily because Stegosaurus's articulation and its gimmick solely relies on the tail area, so that had to be still attached. As for, you know what, we'll do some other comparisons, because I've got enough of these dinosaurs all kicking around this desk area right now. There it is next to the action-packed Velociraptor. Actually, you know what, you could not quite replay the moments in Jurassic Park, but you could have the you know, the raptors being attacked or attacking the T-Rex at the opening area of that center, so to speak, where the T-Rex is fighting the raptors. Again, I like that they're all different scales, but still primarily they're all kind of within the same scale to one another. T-Rex could be a little bit bigger, but we're going to look at a much larger version of the T-Rex in probably the next video, so stay tuned for that. Flipping it upside down, not only are you treated to the Jurassic World imprinted stamp, but also the dinosaur quote-unquote QR code. It's not really called a QR code, but I'm going to go with that, as it is basically a pictured barcode that when you scan it translates to an opening of something, which is usually what a QR code is. These little notches, by the way, pay no attention to them, but now that I brought your attention to them, they're just the things that connect T-Rex into the packaging. When you get her first out, you just have to turn these little plastic dials, pull those out, and that frees T-Rex from her cardboard prison. Looking at some additional paint, she's got the more lighter beige color, almost like a creamy beige happening on the underbelly. Abruptly, unfortunately, stopping. It gets to about this point, it decides it just wants to give up, and clearly the tail has been molded in a separate press, a separate mold press, and they didn't paint, they didn't resume the paint. They slightly transition it out, so it doesn't look like it just stops and cuts off abruptly, but at the very same point, it doesn't continue on here either. I would have liked a little bit of extra paint happening there too, but those are all small little nitpicks. A couple of people have indicated one thing that they're a little bit bothered by is that the lower jaw of T-Rex isn't the same color as the rest of the belly. Now, of course, for me to point out this section up here as something that I notice between paint differences, I obviously can't overlook the fact that the jaw is a completely different color than the rest of the body. I'm not really sure why it's not quite. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need a transitioning color where it needs to be beige, that cream beige, and it needs then to be the brown above it. At the very least, though, it should have matched to this color. I don't know why they... I mean, obviously this is plastic, this is paint, but the two colors should have been a little closer together, I think. Other than that, I think this is more noticeable than this is up here. But there are two things that I probably would have changed differently to the dinosaur here. Anyways, we can open up the mouth slightly, considerably, I suppose. They've painted in the tongue. Or rather, I shouldn't say that. The tongue is a softer plastic that has been molded in its own color. It's almost like a raspberry pink. Teeth are very brightly painted in there as well. One thing I do notice, though, I don't know if you can hear it, it sounds like there's something inside at least my T-Rex. Sounds like there's almost like sounds like it's a twist tie or there's something in there. And though looking around, I don't see anything in it to make me figure out what that sound effect may be, that sound that's coming from it. But yeah, you can hear it. There's something off in there. To activate, by the way, its gimmick, so to speak, it's really this button right here, this cutout section. It blends well enough into the rest of the body that you don't actually see it right away until you look a little closer. Oh, there's the button right there. To activate its feature, you're going to press the button on the top, and it's basically going to do what I just did, but without you having to pry open the mouth. Yeah, I can't help. I couldn't ignore that if I wanted to. It's only when it's closing its mouth that you hear almost like a crinkling of plastic. Do you hear it? Wouldn't it be my luck to get the one T-Rex that has that? Doesn't have sound effects. Those sound effects have been kept solely for the next iteration of the T-Rex, which we will be looking at. Part of me kind of wishes that there was a way, they almost should have had it where you could press the button and then kind of shift it so that you could lock it into place if you wanted to have the T-Rex always with its mouth open. Ultimately, the mouth will always stay closed unless you're lucky enough that it can kind of just catch for a few seconds where you can see the mouth open, but then it's going to close after that. Mine doesn't completely close. It requires me just to kind of push it down a little bit just to keep the mouth completely closed. I just wish it didn't make that awful, oof, just like a crinkling of plastic inside. Not really, again, sure what that's all about. Posability on T-Rex, let's start with the tail, and we'll work our way to the front. The tail, being that you plug it in, has, this tail can rotate all the way around. Well, that's not 100% true. It does stick for a bit, and then you just have to go past the point of that sticking. There's that catching point right there. But it does still allow you to rotate it all the way around. It's slightly a little bit softer here on the end tip of the tail. And the tail also can move back and forth. The legs, much like every other dinosaur that we've looked at, can swivel back and forth and can also hinge outward. That's if, you know, it's obviously not a male dinosaur, but, you know, if it wants to take a leak somewhere. Could you imagine? You wouldn't want to be anywhere in the vicinity of that if that was ever going down, literally ever going down. The feet can rotate all the way around. I mean, they are sort of specific to their mold. That is where it lines up, but as you rotate it, you will see obviously a big noticeable cut between the lower of the foot and the higher area of the leg. But again, those feet can rotate all the way around. The fact that they swivel out also compensates for the dinosaur's stability. You know, it allows the dinosaur to get a better footing, being that you can rotate the feet slightly out. Hands rotate, or arms, the little tiny arms of T-Rex rotates all the way around. You can also hinge them out, just a little bit, not too much, but you can also hinge them out. And they are also of a softer plastic variety. The head is posable only by virtue of the trigger point at the top there, which we've already looked at earlier in the review. And just before we actually have a look at the T-Rex here, or scan it into our Jurassic World app. One thing I also want to show you as well, the part of the articulation I forgot to mention was the neck. As we've looked at, the mouth does open and close via that little hinge, that little button I should say up at the top there, does open and close T-Rex's mouth. I, however, did forget to mention all the posability that it resides in her actual head. I mean, her head does rotate left and right. It's on a ball joint, so technically, if you had the sufficient means, you probably could rotate the head all the way around, but it does get stuck around the collar of its neck. But the head, like I said, moves back and forth, up and down. And then you've got a secondary ball joint. So basically the ball joint here, the head attaches to the socket here, and then a ball joint here attaches to the torso. So this section here can move back and forth, up and down, actually quite a bit, I must admit. So between the two, you can actually get a really articulated neck, which I almost forgot to mention when we were having a look at her. Also, too, what you can do, remember I had mentioned that the mouth doesn't open and close, or it opens, but it doesn't stay open, it wants to close. Well, what you can do to fix that, if you open the mouth, and then hinge the head up into the neck area. Well, actually, if you move this part into the neck, it seems to almost hold the button down. So if you bring up the head, for example, there we go, and open the mouth does stay open. Now, mileage may vary. The mouth will slowly start closing, but it does a pretty good job of of the collar here holding that button down, and in result of that, keeping the mouth open of T-Rex. I must admit, I've been rather excited to check out the T-Rex in the Jurassic World app, now available for iOS and for iPhones. We're going to go ahead and go into, here's the collection, by the way, what I've gotten so far. I've been doing pretty good, actually, for getting most of the dinosaurs. But let's go ahead and scan it. We're going to go into scan, by the way. See that little almost diamond shape? You want to line that up, if I can hopefully show you in camera there. There we go. I'm having great success lately unlocking these dinosaurs at a rapidly fast rate. And there's the T-Rex. Yeah. That T-Rex doesn't quite look like a T-Rex. In actual fact, it looks almost like the Metriacanthosaurus, which we've already looked at. The coloring seems off. Now, there may very well be other variations of the T-Rex over the course of the different scans that we're going to do. We're still going to have another look at another T-Rex. Maybe that's going to give us a more accurate color scheme. Can't help but notice, though, that the coloring is almost like a yellowy green making up its skin and a very dark brown. It looks a lot more like Metriacanthosaurus than it does the T-Rex. Anyways, we're going to go into its stats and let's see a little bit more, or read up a little bit more about the T-Rex. Tyrannosaurus rex lived during the Cretaceous 68 to 66 million years ago. In addition to that, fossilized footprints suggest the Tyrannosaurus must have hunted in groups. See, I didn't actually know that. I always figured that T-Rex usually would travel on their own, but now we know, and knowing is half the battle. She is a carnivore preying on other large dinosaurs, and probably smaller dinosaurs in the process as well. I think the requirement for anybody collecting Jurassic World toys is a T-Rex. Sooner or later, you're going to have to pick up a T-Rex, and this is a nice entryway to getting yourself a T-Rex for your collection. It's a little bit smaller, I guess, by comparison to of the 3 T-Rexes that have been released for the Jurassic World lineup. This is the smallest of the 3. There's one size bigger that's going to have a tail-controlled jaw and audio effects. We're going to be looking at that probably in the next video, so stay tuned for that. We'll do some comparisons with that and the extreme chomping T-Rex that we looked at right here. And then there's the $80, at least $80 here, price point in Canada for the larger T-Rex that could swallow up the smaller dinosaurs. Remember those ones we had to look at? The ones that were in the blind bags? Yeah, there's a T-Rex that swallows those. Literally, you put it into its mouth and you can retrieve them in probably a way that you wouldn't want to retrieve the dead bodies of dinosaurs inside a T-Rex, but I don't think I'm going to have a look at that one. It's way too big. And, you know, again, an $80 price point for T-Rex could be slightly jarring for the wallet. So may or may not pick that one up. I'm not really sure, but we'll definitely have a look at the next T-Rex, the next size up, probably in the next video. So stay tuned for that. Getting ahead of myself here. I'm talking about other things that we're going to be looking at, not talking nearly enough about extreme chomping T-Rex. Again, this is a nice entryway into getting a T-Rex for your collection. It's got some posability where it needs to have posability: tail, leg, arms, head. I like that there's the button on the top there where you can open and close the mouth of the T-Rex. I don't know why that plastic, that's crimping of plastic sound is happening on my T-Rex. If you managed to pick this one up for yourself, let me know in the comments section if yours has that same problem. Wish there was a way that you could have opened the mouth and then locked the switch in place so that at the very least you could always have the T-Rex with its mouth always open as opposed to the defaulted closed mouth. Coloring seems at times a little slightly irregular from itself. The jaw is a completely different color than the rest of the underbelly. A few little things that it could fix, but it's definitely a step up from some of the earlier T-Rexes that we've gotten from previous Jurassic Park and Jurassic World lines. So I really think this is a nice T-Rex. If you don't get the other next scales up, This one's a good one to have on display. Could it have had some more posability? Could have been kind of a definitive T-Rex, absolutely. But I really do like this one for all it does. And even the things that it doesn't do well, I think it still works out to be a really nice looking T-Rex on your display. Today we were having a look at the Mattel Jurassic World Legacy Collection. This was the Extreme Chomping T-Rex. And apparently it's eating plastic for the sounds that it was making. If you guys want to go back and, like I said, have a look at some of my other Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom reviews, there's a playlist on this channel called Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It's not to say, of course, we're not going to have a look at some more dinosaur action, some more dinosaur toys. Those are still going to be coming in the pipeline, and some other reviews coming your way as well. In case you're not a big fan of Jurassic Park, I don't know why you wouldn't be, but make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below. That's crucial. Hit that little button down below. It'll guarantee you that when new videos are coming onto this channel, you'll never miss out. Speaking of also missing out, despite for whatever efforts that I've made to let you guys know of new videos that are coming onto this channel, hitting that little bell notification and all that good stuff, videos unfortunately still are not getting always watched. So if there's a video that maybe you missed out on, the best thing I would say is head over to the main page after you've watched this video and scroll down and see if there's anything you may have missed along the way. Hitting the bell notification would have been the solution to the problem, but apparently the problem still persists. So check out the homepage when you're done here, guys, see if there's any videos that you may have missed along the way, and feel free to check those out. I always like reading new comments in older videos. More videos, guys, will be coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.